I uncovered a sinister secret in the Maddox Heirs' property, exposed nightmares they concealed. Sarah Collins stood at the massive wrought iron gate of the Maddox estate, her heart pounding in her chest like a war drum. Every local whispered of the mansion's dark past, betrayals, jealousy, and an unspeakable tragedy. She instinctively scoffed at the rumors, but a chill slithered down her spine, the air thick with secrets that felt tangible. The moon hung low, casting eerie shadows that danced around her as she recalled the late-night cries haunting her own home. Brushing aside thoughts of her children, Emily and Jake, Sarah pushed the gate open with a shriek, echoing into a silence that felt almost alive. Her eyes darted around, searching for something, anything, before she stepped inside. The air shifted, unwelcoming and oppressive. As she crossed the threshold, it was as if the mansion inhaled her presence, shifting from silent observer to something unnerving. Every creaking floorboard beneath her feet felt like a warning. Inside, time had folded in on itself, the remnants of an old life lay scattered like pieces of a puzzle that should never be complete. Dust mingled with the smell of decay, a potent perfume that stung her nostrils. In the dim light, she spotted a diary half buried beneath the splintering wood of the staircase. Hands trembling, she reached for it, the pages fragile, ready to crumble at the slightest touch. Curiosity can be dangerous in a community like ours, a voice proclaimed sharply behind her. Sarah's heart raced as she whirled around, facing Samuel, her neighbor, his smile as slick as the moonlight filtered through the grimy windows. The way his lips curled didn't strike her as friendly. Something lurked behind that charm, something dark. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Who are you? She managed, her voice barely above a whisper. He took a step closer, like a predator assessing its prey, making her pulse race and her hands sweat. Just a concerned neighbor. The Maddox family has a way of drawing in the curious, and sometimes they don't come out the same, he replied, tilting his head. It was the kind of line that sent tremors down her spine. Something in his eyes suggested a knowing, a deeper understanding of the house's history. Panic began to coil in her stomach like a snake, wrapping tighter. Sarah turned away, adrenaline forcing her legs to move. The echoes of her hurried footsteps filled the emptiness. What had she uncovered? The diary might hold fragments of the truth, but was it worth the price she might pay for knowing? With each step toward the exit, the shadows seemed alive, clawing for her, whispering secrets. As she stumbled back into the cold night, breath coming in sharp gasps, she stole one last glance at Samuel. His smile lingered in her mind, a dark promise of the unknown. Whatever awaited in the pages she had yet to read could lead her down a path from which she might never return. What else had the Maddox family concealed beyond those walls? The night deepened, and as her heart raced, she felt the haunting grip of secrets ready to drag her under. The moon lost its glow, veiled behind creeping clouds as Sarah stumbled away from the Maddox estate, the weight of the night pressing upon her shoulders. Shadows clung to her every step, twisting her surroundings into something grotesque. Her instincts screamed for her to return to the safety of her home, but the diary burned in her mind, promising answers and torment in equal measure. She dashed down the gravel path, her breath coming out in frantic bursts. Each rustle of leaves sounded like whispers urging her to stop, to listen. She fought against the pull of the night, her heart a relentless drum, its rhythm echoing Samuel's ominous warning, they don't come out the same. What did he know? The urgency of the truth clawed at her, a desperate urge to uncover the family's hidden past. As she burst out of the estate's grounds, her phone vibrated in her pocket, a lifeline to the world she had left behind. It was Emily. Mom. Where are you? Please come back. It feels weird here. Her heart sank. I'm almost home, honey. Just a little longer. How could she explain? The whispers in the dark weren't just echoes of the past, they were threats looming in the present. She had to find a place to think, to piece together the fragments swirling in her mind. Once home, she locked the door and rushed into the living room, breathless. The room felt stifling. Shadows lurked in the corners. She glanced at the window, their yard bathed in dim light. Everything felt wrong, even the familiarity of her home felt distorted. She sat at the dining table, the diary lying in front of her like a loaded gun. As her fingers trembled, hovering above it, she flipped it open, the pages crumbling like aged bones. The careful script told of wealth, love, ornate parties, and a rising darkness. Whispers of jealousy morphed into a web of betrayal that spiraled into madness. One entry stopped her cold. I can hear them in the walls. They watch, always watch. The madness of the Maddox blood no one leaves. An icy fear gripped her, and she glanced around the room, her breathing shallow and rapid. She remembered Samuel's eyes darkening as he spoke. Was he referencing the same voices? Panic ballooned in her chest. It wasn't just the family. The estate had a life of its own, and she was in its grip. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the house, followed by the unmistakable sound of footsteps above her. The children's room. Every rational thought fled as she raced upstairs, adrenaline fueling her fear. Emily. Jake. She flung open the door, heart hammering against her ribs. The room was empty. The beds were neatly made, the toys undisturbed, but the air was thick, heavy with a presence she couldn't see. A radio sitting on the nightstand crackled to life. They come for you. When the lights fade, a voice slithered through the static, a whisper chilling her to the bone. No. No. Sarah shouted, ripping the plug from the wall. A sense of dread washed over her. The diary's entries, the unnatural shadows, the suffocating air, they were not mere remnants of a cursed family. They were alive. Before she could catch her breath, a creaking sound pulled her attention back to the hallway. The soft padding of footsteps crept closer, and she turned, staring down the dark corridor leading to the staircase. The whispers grew louder, filling the space with a tangible terror. Clenching her fists, Sarah stood frozen, heart racing. Something was coming for her children. She had to make a choice: stay and face the unseen terror or flee into the unknown night once more, but could she really abandon them? The door creaked slowly, inching open. The darkness bled into the room, seeping like ink, wrapping around the light, pulling it away. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She stepped forward, ready to confront whatever came next, not knowing if she would need to protect her family from the secrets of the Maddox estate or if the darkness would consume them all. What had she awakened? The shadows deepened, and the panic was only just beginning. The air thickened around Sarah as she edged towards the open door, mesmerized by the creeping darkness. She felt the chill crawling down her spine. The whispers transformed into guttural murmurings, a language too ancient to understand, yet she sensed their meaning. They were hungry. Emily. Jake. She yelled, voice trembling but fierce, hoping to drown out the low, haunting tones that slithered through the air. A small part of her mind begged for the realness of her children's laughter, their innocent prayers, anything to combat this terror. Silence echoed back, the shadow at the door shifted, alive, restless. The darkness curled in on itself, as if it had a consciousness. Squinting into the abyss, Sarah's heart thundered, pounding against her ribcage. What have you become? What have you awakened? She took a deep breath, her nails digging into her palms as she braced herself. Each step forward felt like stepping into quicker sand, a pull towards whatever lurked just beyond the doorway. Mommy. A whisper. Emily's voice. Relief twisted with anxiety, it was almost too soft to be true. She dashed to the hallway, searching frantically, eyes wide. Emily. Jake. Where are you? She pleaded, desperation knotting her stomach like a vice. No answer. Just the suffocating weight of silence wrapping around her, and the creaking of the old house, a haunting echo, like a warning. Another creak, this time, atop the stairs. Sarah spun around. Heart racing, she peered up into the shadows, where she thought she could see a figure standing. Her breath caught. 7, maybe 8 feet tall. Just a silhouette against the pale glow seeping from the window. Get away! She shouted, clenching fingers, ready to fight whatever nightmare it was, instincts roaring to life. But the figure didn't move. No features, just a void where a face should be. Mommy! The call wafted down, barely more than a breath. It felt impossibly close, drawing her further into the darkness that tempted her with unknown horrors. Stay where you are. Sarah ordered, adrenaline fueling her courage. I'll find you. The figure remained still, and dread slithered up her spine. She could feel its gaze, a pressure almost palpable. It was assessing her, a predator sizing up its prey. Panic clawed at her mind. Was this the thing that followed her from the Maddox estate, the essence that had seeped into her very soul? Racing back into the children's room, she picked up the discarded radio and slammed it against the wall. Leave us alone! She screamed, shattering the static lull into nothingness, silence. But it was the kind of silence that felt wrong, heavy with what came next. Shadows danced on the wall, merging into horrific shapes that elongated with malicious intent. Please, she whispered, backing towards the window, the last remnant of safety. She tore her eyes from the creeping darkness, searching for an escape. If Emily heard her, that meant she was close, right? They could still run, but as she turned, the room warped. The walls pulsed like a living organism, and she stumbled back in fear. The sounds returned, almost a chorus, chanting her name, taunting her. They knew her. They knew her children. A voice, deeper than the rest, pierced through the cacophony. You can't escape, Sarah. We are waiting for you. With every ounce of strength, she broke away from the shadows pulling at her, racing back to the door. She slammed it behind her, panting, desperation filling her lungs. Running down the hallway, she screamed again, Emily. Jake! Thumping footsteps echoed from below, leading her to a dimly lit staircase descending into the black maw of the house. Mommy! There it was again. A split second of clarity through the suffocating fear. They were closer, no longer just figments of her imagination. But before she could reach them, the world around her shifted. A cold wind howled through the corridor, extinguishing light as shadows crept closer, wrapping around her like chains. Panic surged through her heart, and she felt them pulling her back, fastening the noose tighter. Sarah, resolve bending. Under pressure, cried out into the darkness, I'll find you. I promise. But deep down, a chilling thought pierced through her determination. What if the shadows didn't just want her? What if they hungered for something far worse? The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly before her, mocking her urgency. Could she outpace the darkness? And what if she found her children too late? The shadows thickened as Sarah plunged down the staircase, each step creaking beneath her weight, a reminder of the house's sinister breath. The whispers twisted around her, wrapping like claws, each syllable pushing her further into the darkness. Emily. Jake. She choked out again. The sound resonated in the gaping maw of the hallway, a cry swallowed whole by the looming shadows. She could feel them pulling at her heart, coiling tighter with each desperate step. The air turned sour, thick with dread. A distant noise echoed, a shuffling, a dragging sound that sent ice coursing through her veins. What was down there? Did it lurk behind her children? Her thoughts spiraled into a chaotic storm of fear and instinct. She had to keep moving. In a rush, Sarah rounded the corner, spotting a faint glow at the far end, a flickering from beneath a door slightly ajar. Hope surged in her chest. Emily. Jake. She shouted one last time, a raw plea rather than a command. Panic surged as she reached for the doorknob. It was icy, sending shockwaves through her fingers. She twisted it slowly and pushed, the creaking door agonizingly slow to reveal its secrets. Inside, the room swam into focus. Dim light flickered from a single candle, illuminating what looked like a child's playroom, but the toys were scattered, each one slightly askew. A doll with a cracked face grinned at her, its eyes unnaturally wide. "Why are you hiding?" she whispered, stepping further inside, adrenaline propelling her against her better judgment. Just then, a sound broke the stillness, a soft giggle from behind a curtain. She dashed forward, adrenaline racing, but as her hand grasped the fabric, the voice dropped into a frightened hush. "Mommy?" Sarah's heart lurched. It was Emily, her sweet daughter. Gripping the curtain, she yanked it aside, but the space behind was empty. "Emily?" Silence huddled close, and then came a low growl, resonating from the shadows, deep as the night itself. An oppressive weight settled on her shoulders, pushing her to the ground. This wasn't right. She clenched her fists, muscles trembling. "Get out!" A voice screamed from the depths, a guttural force that filled her with dread. Shadows spilled out from the corners, moving like a tide, surging toward her, hungry, relentless. "Emily! Jake!" She cried again as the darkness enveloped her, weight pressing down, wrapping her in suffocating dread. The room warped and buckled, the toys morphing into grotesque shapes. Then came a whisper, softer now but laced with malice. "Do you want to play?" With a burst of instinct, she threw her hands in front of her, trying to shield herself from the shadows. Suddenly, she felt a pull, a desperate grip that brought her crashing down onto the floor. The darkness whispered her name, slithering closer. The feeling of claustrophobia seeped in. Was she trapped? Were they in the walls? The shadows pulsed, vibrant and alive, and Sarah's reality blurred. Was this where Emily and Jake had disappeared? With a surge of primal fear, she bolted back through the door, back to the hallway. The shadows roared, furious now, chasing after her as she sprinted up the staircase. The overflow of dark energy washed over her like freezing rain, chilling her bones. "Go! Go! Go!" her mind screamed. At the top of the stairs, a blast of cool air struck her face, giving a fleeting sense of clarity. She reached the landing, still gasping for breath. But where to go? She glanced around, the darkness creeping in once more, hungry and relentless. Then a soft whimper caught her attention from a room at the end of the corridor, the very room where she'd first heard Emily. Her heart raced. Was it her child or was it a trap? As she crept toward that door, the whispers grew louder. Now they were chanting, surrounding her. "You're one of us now." What awaited on the other side could either be salvation or doom. With every step, she teetered on the brink. At this moment, fear was all-consuming. She couldn't linger much longer. She had to choose. What lay beyond that door? Sarah's hand trembled as she reached for the knob. Would she find her children, or would the shadows claim her too? The moment hung heavy in the air, filled with tension and uncertainty. Sarah gripped the doorknob, its cold surface biting into her palm. She hesitated, heart racing, the echoes of the whispers filling her mind. "You're one of us now." It sent shivers down her spine. What did they want from her? With a sharp inhale, she twisted the knob and pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing across the walls like malignant spirits. Old toys cluttered the floor, remnants of a childhood long forgotten. A crooked rocking horse creaked softly, as if understanding her fear. "Emily! Jake!" She called again, her voice shaky. The whimper she'd heard earlier tugged at her heart, sharper now, laced with despair. She stepped inside, the door creaking shut behind her as if sealing her fate. The air thickened, stifling her breath. Each corner felt like a gaping maw, ready to swallow her whole. As she moved deeper into the room, the chilling silence was broken by another whine, more distinct this time. "Mommy, Emily." The name slipped through her lips like a prayer. She followed the sound to a pile of old blankets stacked in the corner. With trembling hands, she pushed them aside, revealing a hollow space. The sight sent her heart skittering, a tangle of dark hair peeked out. Mommy. Emily's voice, bright and terrified, made Sarah's heart swell. Relief surged within her, but it was quickly chased by panic. Hold on, baby. I'm coming. As she reached for her daughter, a cold ghastly wind gusted through the room. The toys on the shelves rattled, and a cacophony of whispers rose around her. Let her go, come play with us, no. Sarah shouted, panic igniting into fury. She yanked at the blankets, pulling them away until Emily's trembling face came into view. But Emily was not alone. Shadowy figures roiled around her, faces half-formed and distorted, twisting and leaning closer. Join us, stay forever, they crooned. Get away from her. Sarah screamed, heart pounding in her chest. The moment felt stretched and fragile, and she was terrified of shattering it. She reached down, grasping Emily's hands, but the shadows coiled tighter around her daughter, pulling her into the abyss. With a primal scream, Sarah wrenched Emily back, dragging her free from the cold grasp of darkness. The force struck her like ice water, sinking deep into her bones. But the shadows weren't done. They surged forward, a tsunami of swirling darkness. Don't let go, sweetheart. She pulled Emily closer, adrenaline flooding her system. The candles flickered and threatened to snuff out. Shadows writhed and snarled, twisting into demonic shapes. Run! She shouted, the words breaking through the chaos. They fled toward the door, but before they could reach it, the shadows shifted, blocking their escape. Chilled hands reached for Sarah, brushing against her skin and twisting into chaotic figures that clawed for her heart. Go! Go! Sarah pushed Emily ahead, shoving the girl toward the faint light outside. Her mind raced. If Emily was free, would the shadows take her instead? With a fierce resolve, Sarah spun to face the darkness. Keep away from my daughter. Her voice, though trembling, erupted with power. To her astonishment, the shadows shrank back, as if repelled by her defiance. She took a deep breath, bolstering her courage. You can't have her. The figure creeping closer faltered, its form flickering like a dying flame. But the moment of triumph was brief. The shadows swirled once more, angry and relentless. What if they were playing with her, waiting to turn her own fear against her? Mommy? Emily whimpered, pulling at her dress, uncertainty clouding her fragile face. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from behind them. The wall shuddered, splintering under some unseen pressure. The shadows screamed in fury, their whispers turning into a wailing chorus. The door behind them creaked ominously, shaking like it would burst open. Sarah! A hollow voice erupted from deep within the house, pulling both of their attentions. You must choose now. Staring into the depth of darkness and the unknown beyond the door, Sarah felt the weight of the world rest on her shoulders. Could they escape? Was there a choice to make at all? As the shadows lunged forward once more, she knew they were running out of time. Should she fight or flee? The moment felt beyond the edge of sanity, tiptoeing precariously between life and a nightmare that threatened to engulf them both. With every fiber of her being, she screamed, I want to let you take her. The shadows paused, an eerie stillness shrouding the room as if she had drawn a line in the sand. But could she hold it? In that fragile breath of uncertainty, the room shook once more, and Sarah realized whatever lurked in the depths of this house wasn't finished with them yet. Mommy, what do we do now? Emily cried, eyes wide with terror, and the question hung heavy in the air, demanding an answer that might never come. The shadows swirled around them, an army of darkness ready to pounce. Sarah clutched Emily's hand tighter, it felt like a lifeline wrapped in terror. The air grew colder, biting into her skin as the echoes of the hollow voice reverberated in her mind. She had to make a choice. Mommy, I'm scared. Emily's small voice broke through the suffocating silence, that single word like a blade piercing Sarah's resolve. Stay close to me, Emily, she whispered, forcing herself to act like she knew what to do. If they were to fight, they would need a plan, however fleeting. But there wasn't time. The shadows coiled dangerously close, inching toward them like a serpent ready to strike. Sarah's heart thundered, thumping against her ribs like it wanted to escape. "We need to get to the door," she urged, her voice steady despite the quake in her chest. "Go." The voice crackled, sending chills down her spine. "You can't help her. You will join us soon enough." "No." Sarah screamed, springing into action. Ignoring the chaos swirling around them, she pulled Emily forward. As they darted toward the flickering light, the shadows converged, merging and twisting into grotesque shapes, faces morphing into expressions of rage and hunger. "Keep running, sweetheart," Sarah shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Just as they approached the threshold, a gust of frigid wind swept through the room, knocking Sarah off balance. She stumbled, heart racing as she turned to see the shadows closing in again, a tidal wave of darkness hungry for their anguish. Emily screamed, her small hands futilely trying to tug Sarah forward. "Mommy, they want to eat us." "Fear isn't a meal," Sarah blurted. It shouldn't have made sense, but they needed to fuel their courage, not their fear. They scrambled for the door, but the shadows lunged, golden eyes briefly blaring through the dark. The door creaked as though it too wanted to consume them. "Join us," they hissed, voices overlapping into a maddening choir. "Why won't you let go?" Emily cried, her voice choked in terror. The connection between them felt achingly vulnerable, like a frayed thread about to snap. Each step felt agonizingly slow, then she saw a glimmer of light piercing through the bottom of the door. Hope surged but was quickly replaced by dread as she reached for the knob. It twisted sickly in her hand, stuck as if the spirits were testing their bond. Come on," she urged desperately, twisting it harder until it clicked open. The door swung wide, a burst of light flooding into the darkness with an almost blinding intensity. They stumbled into the hallway outside, the oppressive shadows surging behind them, screeching as they were repelled. The air shifted, warmth enveloping them, but it felt like a thin veil. "Where are we?" Emily asked, confused yet clinging to Sarah's side. I don't know," Sarah gasped, trying to regain her breath. They stood at a crossroads, and for the first time, she spotted the house's twisted architecture, walls sagging as if the house were exhaling a long-held breath. The gloom in the air shifted, taking on a sickly hue. Suddenly, behind them, the door slammed shut, rattling with an otherworldly force. Shadows pooled beneath where the door had been. They were trapped, ensnared. Sarah turned back, panic rising once more. "There's nowhere to go, Mommy," Emily whimpered, her voice trembling, echoing the fear in Sarah's heart. "Then we find another way," Sarah insisted, but dread pooled in her gut. The whispering intensified, rising to a fever pitch. "You can't escape, there will be no way out." Sarah pressed a hand over Emily's mouth to silence her whimpers as the walls shifted again, threatening to close in on them. Her mind raced frantically, needing a plan. Behind them, the door shook violently, as if the shadows were testing the lock. Just as she was about to move, a glimmer caught her eye, an ethereal light flickering in the distance, further down the corridor. "Emily, this way!" she shouted, pulling her daughter toward it with renewed hope. They fled down the hall, the whispers clawing at their heels like wild animals. Could the light be their salvation? Or was it another trap, just like the door behind them? In that moment of frantic flight, another chilling voice called out, "You can't abandon us, Sarah, come back." The shadows surged forward, and Sarah felt the pulse of dread wrap around her like chains. Was she truly strong enough to defy them? The light flickered madly ahead, the only sliver of hope in a world spiraling into despair. What lay beyond that glow? Fear clamped her throat, but something told her they had no choice but to leap into the unknown. "Please, don't let go," Sarah whispered, clutching Emily's hand tighter. Together, they raced desperately toward the light, leaving the haunting whispers echoing behind, but not for long. They tore down the hall, the shadows gnashing their dark teeth, desperately clawing at the walls, trying to pull themselves out. The echo of that chilling voice was like an unholy song, wrapping around Sarah, a cold breath against the nape of her neck. "Mommy, please!" Emily cried out, tugging harder, her small feet racing to keep up with Sarah's frantic pace. "What is happening?" "I don't know." Sarah shouted back, the strain in her voice betraying her fear. Time ticked away like a predator's hastening heartbeat. The flickering light loomed closer, its soft glow a beacon promising safety, but the shadows writhed and howled, hungry for them. Then, without warning, Emily stumbled, her foot catching on something unseen. Sarah barely registered the cry as the ground shifted beneath them. A crack spread across the floor, dark and jagged like an open wound. Time seemed to freeze. "Emily!" Sarah yelled, lunging forward just in time to catch her daughter's arm. They dangled precariously over a bottomless pit that yawned beneath them, the darkness writhing like a living creature eager to claim them. With every ounce of strength, she yanked Emily up, her heart pounding in her ears. They locked eyes for a moment, both breathing heavily, but before relief could settle, the shadows surged again. "You're not going anywhere," the whispers hissed, swelling with rage. "Run!" Sarah screamed, pulling Emily along. They needed to reach the light. Their only chance. They raced forward, feet pounding against the warped floorboards, dodging debris that threatened to trip them. The corridor twisted and turned, a nauseating maze shaped by malevolent forces, but that light shimmered ahead, guiding them like a lighthouse in a storm. The closer they got, the brighter it became, illuminating grotesque silhouettes that seemed to pulse with anticipation just out of reach. "Mommy!" Emily squeaked, pointing. "It's so pretty." "It is." Sarah shouted, forcing a smile, her stomach churning. "Just keep going." But as they sprinted toward it, doubts swirled in her mind. Was it truly safety? Or a cruel trick played by whatever haunted this place? In a final burst of dread-fueled energy, they lunged toward the light, its warmth wrapping around them like an embrace. Just as they reached it, everything froze, the walls around them dissolved in a swirl of shadows, revealing an expansive room. It was magnificent and horrifying all at once. Chandeliers hung from ceilings that stretched impossibly high, their delicate crystals glinting like teeth in a monstrous grin. The heavy scent of decay lingered in the air, mixing with something sweet, something welcoming yet abhorrent. "Where are we?" Emily whispered, her voice small and fragile against the enormity of the space. Sarah hesitated, overwhelmed by the surreal beauty twisted with darkness. But there was no time for questions. Shadowy figures emerged from the corners, eyes gleaming with malicious intent, their forms shifting in and out of focus like a distorted dream. "You're in our domain now," one voice purred, dripping with malevolence. "You chose to wander into the depths." "Mommy, I don't like this." Emily whimpered, clinging to Sarah's leg. "We can't stay here." The determination ignited within Sarah, overshadowing her swirling fear. She scanned the room, looking for another way out, desperate to find a path that would lead them to freedom. But the shadows closed in, whispering and laughing, their voices blending into a cacophony. "Join us," they taunted, their forms coiling around her, and in that terrible moment, Sarah realized these weren't just shadows, they were souls trapped within the depths, crying for release. "Emily, hold on tight," Sarah commanded, pulling her daughter close. She remembered the light. It had been their only chance. "We have to find it again. It has to lead us somewhere safe." They backed away from the relentless pull, eyes darting around, searching for any glimmer that would reveal an exit. "What if we can't find it?" Emily's small voice trembled. "Then we make our own way," Sarah said, feeling her resolve harden against the growing despair. In that moment, a distant flicker emerged again, deeper into the room. "There, Emily. We go toward the light, and we don't stop running until we find our way out." But as they began to move, laughter erupted around them, thick with malice, echoing off the ornate walls. "You can't escape what's inside of you," the darkness pulsed, swirling tighter with each step they took toward the fading hope. What truth did the shadows know? What did they see hidden within Sarah's heart? With dread gnawing at her soul, Sarah pushed forward, praying they'd find the light before it was too late. But what lay in wait just beyond the horizon? As they rushed deeper into the room, the shadows seemed to pulse with anticipation, their grasp tightening like a noose. With each hurried step, Sarah felt the temperature drop. The air thickened, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud, as whispers coiled around her thoughts. "You belong to us, you will never leave, keep moving," Sarah urged, her voice breaking with urgency. Emily's small hand felt icy in hers, and panic surged like a wildfire through Sarah's chest. What were they? What horror had they stumbled into? Ahead, the flickering light dimmed and then flared back to life, dancing like a flame caught in a malignant wind. It seemed so far now, a mocking promise of safety that felt just out of reach. Shadows flitted between the chandeliers, their forms shifting and contorting as if they were struggling against invisible ropes. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emily's voice trembled, the widening fear in her eyes mirrored in Sarah's heart. "I know, sweetheart. We're almost there," Sarah shouted, though her own hope waned against the growing darkness. Every heartbeat echoed like a countdown to some terrible fate, and the shadows seemed to smell her fear, feeding off it. Suddenly, the laughter rose again, intoxicating and haunting, reverberating against the room's high ceilings. "You think you can run? We are the echoes of your past," one of the figures screamed, its voice sharp and serrated. The words cut through Sarah like shards of glass, chilling her to the bone. "What do you mean? I don't understand." "Oh, but you will," the chorus of voices sang. Memory twined with horror, images flashing like cheap film. The faces of lost ones, lost moments, regrets long buried stared back at her. Screams of despair danced on her eardrums, the echoes of every choice she made that brought her here. Every moment it felt too late to turn back. "Mommy!" Emily cried out, yanking on her sleeve. "Don't listen to them. Don't." "I'm trying," Sarah screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. She locked eyes with her daughter, fierce and determined. "They couldn't let these shadows strip away their resolve." In a burst of steely will, Sarah shouted, "We are not afraid of you. We will make our own way." Abruptly, the room plunged into chilling silence, an abrupt withdrawal of all mocking laughter that hung in the air moments ago. The figures recoiled, startled. With a deep breath, Sarah pulled Emily closer, edging toward the light. She had no other choice but to believe that their strength might be enough to fight back, but as they stepped forward, the floor beneath them trembled violently, and the light quivered with anger. The shadows bellowed in a frantic rush, swirling around them like a dark storm. "You cannot chase the light, it will consume you." Sarah and Emily stumbled, a jagged crack erupting across the floor, sharp and threatening. The increased cacophony filled the room again, drowning out their thoughts with dread. "We will reclaim what is ours. Hold on," Sarah shouted, wrestling with the fear that clawed at her insides. They leapt towards the light as the shadows surged to block their escape. The brightness flickered, and for a moment, it felt like hope was fading. Just when it seemed there was nowhere left to go, a tall door appeared behind the light, its surface shimmering like rippling water. "Mommy," Emily said, her voice a mixture of hope and fear. "Go. Now," Sarah urged, pushing her daughter forward. As they reached for the door, tendrils of darkness snaked around Sarah's ankles, trying to drag her back into the suffocating void. "Let go. I want to let you take me," she yelled, pulling Emily close. The light pulsed, as if urging them forward. With one final tug, Sarah ripped free from the shadow's grasp and hurled herself through the doorway. As she crossed the threshold, the darkness screamed in rage behind them, a sound so monstrous it made her skin crawl, but the moment she entered, the door slammed shut, echoing in the hollow space. They were enveloped in a blinding light. Pain lanced through her skull, and she fell to her knees, gasping. "Where are we now? Emily." soft voice cut through the chaos, but confusion surrounded Sarah like fog. Was this truly safety, or another trap? As her eyes adjusted, she looked up to see they were in a narrow, dimly lit corridor, the air thick and stale. And at the end stood another door, this one adorned with carvings that twisted and writhed, shadows flickering over its surface like insects trapped in amber. What did we walk into? Sarah whispered, dread curling in her stomach. The chilling sensation settled deeper, as whispers began to weave through the air again, this time softer, sweeter, beckoning. Join us, you cannot escape. A familiar fear gripped her, and she closed her eyes, unsure what awaited them on the other side. But to go back was to succumb to the darkness. Are we ready to find out? She whispered to Emily, bracing for whatever horrors lurked behind that door. Sarah took a deep breath, heart pounding. A chill touched her skin, like icy fingers reaching from the walls. Her voice barely registered above the whispers, we can't stay here. We have to keep moving. Emily nodded, her wide eyes reflecting the flickering shadows. They were trapped in a limbo of despair, the door at the end of the corridor loomed like a mouth ready to swallow them whole. The inscriptions twisted, words flickering in and out of focus, as if they were alive. Join us, it echoed. Mommy, what if it's bad? Emily asked, her innocence piercing the thick veil of tension. Whatever's waiting, we face it together, Sarah replied, her resolve hardening. But the closer they got, the more the air thickened, growing heavy and suffocating. Each step screamed defiance against the tug of darkness lingering behind. As they reached the door, Sarah pressed her palm against the cool wood. The carvings felt warm, pulsing weakly beneath her touch. She shut her eyes for a moment, gathering courage. On 3, we push the door, she instructed. 1, 2, 3. They shoved the door open, the hinges protesting with a low groan. The light spilled into the corridor, revealing a large chamber bathed in a ghostly glow. But that glow came from the walls, slimy, pulsating walls lined with grotesque faces. They twisted and cried, mouths gaping in silent screams, eyes shimmering with fear that pierced straight through Sarah's soul. Mommy! Emily gasped, clinging tightly to Sarah's side. What is this place? Sarah whispered, eyes darting. She felt trapped in a living nightmare, the creatures seemingly crawling from her worst dreams. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, upon it a small, ornate box. Umber and tarnished gold adorned it. The heaviness in the air pressed down, almost as if the box was breathing, drawing in the light and holding it hostage. Don't touch it. Emily cried, voice strained. But something inside Sarah pushed her forward. She swallowed hard, fighting the intuitive dread wrapping around her like vines. Stay close, she instructed, stepping toward it, the whispers growing louder. Open it, let us in. With trembling hands, she reached for the box. As she lifted it, shadows surged around them, more frantic than before, twisting and writhing. Stop! No! They barely managed to stumble away as an icy blast struck her. The walls screamed in unison, echoing Emily's cry. Sarah clutched the box like a lifeline, hyperventilating as darkness clawed at her sanity. This is our only chance. She shouted, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing in. We have to see what's inside. Just as Sarah unlocked the box, the energies collided violently. Ear-splitting screams erupted around them, an overwhelming cacophony piercing through the hopelessness. Shadows distorted, attempting to break free from the imprisoned forms etched into the walls. Mommy, please. Emily begged, tears pooling in her eyes, but the terror had long since consumed Sarah's reason. As she threw the lid open, a blinding light erupted, illuminating the chamber. The faces on the walls screamed and writhed, as if drawn into a maelstrom, faces splintering into dark shards that echoed their despair. The light drew forth a figure from the depths of the box, spectral and shifting, yet exuding a terrifying calm. You have awakened my purpose, it said, voice like dripping honey. Emily gasped, stepping back. Who are you? I am the keeper of the lost, it breathed, shadow spilling from around it like ink. And you, dear Sarah, have opened a door not meant for the living. The realization struck like a wall of ice. What had they unleashed? She grabbed Emily's hand, feeling the pulse of fear radiating off her daughter. Run! Sarah shouted, steel igniting in her voice as she turned, willing herself toward the door they came through, but darkness swirled faster now, a storm hellbent on reclaiming what Sarah thought she could defy. As they sprinted, shadows reached for them, fingers closing around ankles, seeking to drag them back. You cannot escape what you awakened. Echoed the spectral figure, heart. Racing, they reached the door just as it began to close, the cacophony behind them growing. With a desperate push, Sarah flung it open, barreling through as it slammed shut behind them with a finality that rattled the very bones of the house. They fell into another corridor, breathless, gasping for air, but the whispers remained, gnawing at the edges of her mind. You will never be free. Eyes wide, Sarah turned to Emily. Did we really escape? But the corridor echoed with a darker laugh from the shadows beyond, chilling them both to the bone. Together, they could feel an unseen force tightening around them, urging them to succumb, to give in. Get ready, sweetheart, Sarah murmured, dread creeping back into her heart. We may have just opened a fate worse than what we escaped. What waited ahead? Would they find salvation, or would they step further into the void? The corridor twisted ominously, shadows crawling along the walls like a creeping vine reaching for their heels. Emily clutched Sarah's hand as they stumbled forward, fueled by fear yet bound by love. Each labored breath echoed, heavy with the remnants of the darkness they had just escaped, yet the whispers still trailed behind them, seeking to ensnare their minds. Mommy! Emily pleaded, voice quivering. What do we do now? We keep moving, sweetheart, Sarah said, her voice firm despite the fear clawing at her insides. We're going to find a way out of this together. They reached the end of the corridor, and there stood another heavy door, aged and twisted with time. A faint light shimmered from beneath it, a beacon in the oppressive darkness. Taking a shaky breath, Sarah turned to her daughter, holding her small face in her hands. No matter what happens, you stay close to me. We face whatever lies behind this door together, okay? Emily nodded, wide eyes glistening with trust and fear. With the strength of a mother's love fueling her, Sarah pressed her hand against the cold wood, pushing the door open. As it creaked, they were immediately enveloped in light, warm, inviting, and bright. It felt like stepping into a dream. They blinked against the glow, and as their vision cleared, they saw a vast room filled with sunlight. Flowers bloomed in vibrant hues along the walls, and laughter danced through the air, a stark contrast to the shrieks they had fled. It felt surreal, a paradise that made no sense after the nightmare they had endured. Is this heaven? Emily asked, awe and disbelief filling her trembling voice. It must be, Sarah whispered, hope flickering like a candle against the darkness they knew all too well, but the tranquility was deceitful. As they stepped further into the room, a low hum of whispers returned, resonant like a distant storm brewing. Shadows began to stretch slowly across the floral backdrop, a foreboding reminder of their escape. A figure emerged, a woman, glimmering in the warmth of the room, with a smile that sent chills down Sarah's spine. Welcome, dear ones, the figure announced, voice soft yet commanding. You have found the light, but you cannot avoid your fate. Sarah felt the air grow thick. What do you mean? We escaped. Her heart raced, protective instincts flaring. Oh, sweet child, the woman continued, eyes glinting like a predator. The darkness you left behind has followed you. It is a part of you now, and it is drawn to your light. You are forever intertwined. No. Sarah shouted, clenching Emily's hand tighter. We fought to escape it. The woman smiled like she held the answers that would undo them. You can't outrun yourself. It will always seek you out, gnawing at your fears. A cold sweat broke across Sarah's forehead, the walls closing in, suffocating her hope. What do we do? She gasped, frantic. Embrace the darkness, Sarah, the woman whispered, shadows fluttering around her. Only then can you find true freedom. Just then, a quickening rush of wind blew through the room, halting everything. Emily stood still, torn between fear and the woman's beckoning voice, the soft glow of the sunlight fading. "Mommy?" she whimpered, a shadow flickering across her small face. "No. Emily, don't listen," Sarah cried, desperately trying to pull her daughter away from the figure's reach. The shadows surged, pooling around them, dark hands grasping at their ankles, pulling them down. Join us, they hissed. "No. I want to let you take her," Sarah screamed, ripping her daughter back to her side. With a surge of raw, unstoppable love more powerful than the darkness, she faced the figure, her voice steady. "I will never embrace the darkness. We are stronger than you." In a breathtaking moment, the light pulsed violently, forcing the shadows back, illuminating the room with blinding brilliance. The woman's smile twisted into a snarl as she shrieked, her form disintegrating into mist, the whispers clawing at them in sudden agony. "Run!" Sarah shouted, gripping Emily's hand as they darted past the collapsing shadows, racing towards. The light flooding through the door frame, just as they reached the exit, the shadows let out a final death wail. "You can't escape what lies within." And they burst into the open-air sunlight warming their skin, the sweet smell of earth flooding their lungs as they emerged from the depths of terror. Sarah looked at Emily, breathless, heart-pounding. "We did it," Emily murmured, her eyes sparkling with disbelief. "Yeah, we did," Sarah whispered, tears of relief cascading down her cheeks. She swept her daughter into her arms, holding on with all her might, gratitude strumming through her. "We fought for each other, and we won." They turned back toward the now darkened door, its presence lingering like a ghost. Though shadows may still follow from time to time, Sarah knew they had faced the nightmare together. And they always would, because love would always be the light guiding them through the darkness. As Sarah tightened her embrace, a flicker of uncertainty danced at the edge of her heart. But for now, they had found freedom. And freedom was enough. Now it's your turn. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss future exclusive stories that will leave you breathless. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm with love and get these stories noticed. Your support makes a difference. Flood that comment section with your reactions, theories, or what you would have done in Sarah's shoes. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand how important it is to support our journey together.